You know we about them ball catchers around here. And this year in fantasy football, there are so many great wide receiver options. But in today's show, I'm gonna guarantee you that I talk about wide receivers that are on your roster. No more watching through start-sit videos to see if your guy is even mentioned. So let's talk about those starts and sits for the wide receiver position right about now. All right, so this is how our starts and sits are gonna go. Maybe you're new around here. I at least wanna make sure I cover this in week one. Now, we go through every NFL matchup every single week and talk about every fantasy viable option there is at the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end position. Now, obviously, this show is about wide receivers. If you're looking for those other positions, be sure to head over to the channel as soon as this video is over. Now, during each matchup, you're gonna see the players on the screen with a corresponding color: green, yellow, and red. Green means we're pretty confident in the start. Yellow, it's a little bit risky. And then red, not interested this week. You're also going to see team stats and player stats as well. Now, obviously, we have nothing to go off for 2023. So in today's show, you're going to see the 2022 stats. But we'll be sure to give you information on every single player, so by the time you leave this video, you've gotten something that you can apply to your fantasy football team. Now, if you go through this show and you're like, Jake, I got multiple guys who are colored green. What am I gonna do? Don't worry. Our rankings drop Thursday morning prior to Thursday Night Football. If you have to make a decision between a couple guys, those will be able to help you out. But now it's time to dive into all the matchups. If you're looking for timestamps, they're down below in the description. Everybody hit the like button for timestamps, because here we go. Thursday Night Football, the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs. And what I find crazy about this matchup here is that with all the expected offense in this game, there's really only one wide receiver that's considered maybe a must start. And that guy has to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you've been here for multiple years, it's hashtag Doomtar down below in the comment section. Now, I don't expect there's a lot of teams out there that are overly worried about Marvin Jones Jr. Now, sure, the big play potential is going to be there, but the volume, that's going the way of Amon-Ra. Last year, he averaged almost 10 targets a game, now has a rookie tight end and a suspended wide receiver, which means he could actually see more volume per game to start the season. In fact, I'm going to head over to Underdog Fantasy right now, and I'm going to head over to the Pick'em section because Amon-Ra is currently set at 6.5 receptions. I'm going to smash the higher on that one right now. Maybe you haven't set up your account on Underdog Fantasy just yet, but now is the time to do so. Head over there, create a new account, use the referral code Headliners. Once you do that, make your initial deposit. We'll match that deposit all the way up to $100, and you can start winning some money along with us. And we've loved the talent of Amon-Ra for years around here. I love the overall offense now in Detroit as well. But heck, I'll start almost any wide receiver that's going to go out and get 10 targets a week. That's just a smart thing to do in fantasy football. You can't score points without getting touches. At the wide receiver position, they can't get touches without targets. Gimme them targets. Now, obviously, we're going to start him here this week and hope for the potential big game. But the big story for this matchup has to be with the Chiefs and the availability of Travis Kelce, who hyperextended his knee in practice earlier in the week. At the time of this recording, we don't know whether or not he's going to play or not, and people are flipping the F out. Now, we've already been talking for weeks about the wide receivers in Kansas City on who's going to be the guy to step up. We have Kadarius Toney, who's healthy, I guess, for now. Probably won't last long. Sky Moore, also, I've been talking about him all offseason. These guys are going to become immediate options for me in this offense until we find out more information about Travis Kelce. They're going to have to be the volume guys in this offense if Kelce were to miss. So hopefully you've been listening to me rant for the last 3 months about Sky Moore, because that hype this offseason could really turn into immediate production, and his breakout chances are getting better by the day. As for Kadarius Toney, skill or talent has never been the issue. It's just keeping him on the field. He can't stay healthy. He can't play entire games. That's the problem. But you know, in a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, they're going to find ways to be creative and get these guys involved. I kind of look at them as a lower-end wide receiver too, maybe a flex play as far as upside. As far as MVS goes, maybe more of a deeper league play. If you play in those 14 or 16 teamers, maybe you have like 3 or 4 flex plays, all of a sudden he becomes a guy that I may look at if Travis Kelce isn't on the field. He's never really been a volume guy, but he could definitely be the big play guy in that offense. We're also hearing the name Richie James, who's finally designated as healthy. But man, it's going to be such a crapshoot. If I had to put money on 2 guys right now, it'd be Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. But just like I did in my quarterback video, it's time to hip thrust it into Sunday football. In the quarterback video, I was cool, calm, and collected. This one, it's a vigorous hip thrust into Sunday because we have a whole lot of wide receivers to talk about. Let's head over to the Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons. And really, when it comes to the wide receiver position, not really a sexy way to head into Sunday football. Neither one of these teams has a wide receiver one that I'm overly confident in. Now, I expect Adam Thielen to basically be Bryce Young's binky in this offense and have the highest target share, which is great since the matchup here against the Falcons this week is against a defense that last season gave up over 28 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. But Thielen is kind of in that category where if he doesn't find the end zone, he's probably going to only score you like 8 or 9 points and not really help you. He's got to find the end zone. And really, it's kind of the same with Jonathan Mingo, the rookie wide receiver there as well. Gonna have to find a touchdown, especially if DJ Chark plays. Neither one of those guys, though, are going to be someone I look at in week 1 of fantasy football. Being that it is week 1, I don't expect many teams to really even have to contemplate starting either one of these guys, but if I had to choose one, it's going to be Adam Thielen, and it's going to be a little bit risky. For Atlanta, no one really knows what to expect from Drake London here as well. When he produced last season, Kyle Pitts wasn't in the lineup. He was injured and out. So what do the targets look like in Atlanta with a healthy Kyle Pitts and Drake London? And not to mention a healthy and very explosive Bijan Robinson in the backfield. The defense here in Carolina, though, is pretty solid, and Drake London may not have a whole lot of time to get open down the field. The ceiling here may be a little bit lower for Drake London. I'm looking at like a low-end wide receiver, too, with some risk. Maybe a flex play in some of the deeper leagues. There are just so many other good options out there, safer options at the wide receiver position, that I don't know if I'd want to risk it with Drake London. Like I said, he's going to be a risky low-end wide receiver to start for me this week, though. How about we head down to Houston for the Texans and the Baltimore Ravens? And I really have no idea how we can honestly feel comfortable with any of the wide receivers in this game. For Houston, you have a rookie quarterback going on the road in his first NFL regular season start against a super solid Baltimore Ravens defense. Sure, I loved Nico Collins all offseason for where you could get him in drafts. And sure, a lot of people fell in love with Tank Dell here this offseason. We also know that Bobby Trees, Robert Woods is a fan favorite around here, but this team also still has the likes of Dalton Schultz and Dameon Pierce in the backfield as well. Now, we have no idea what the target share is going to look like in Houston when everything is said and done. Luckily, all these guys were probably drafted as bench stashes, if they were even drafted in your league, so more than likely you have better options to start in week 1. For Baltimore, it's a lot of the same things though, right? More weapons this year than in years past, but who's going to see the volume? We have Odell Beckham playing football for the first time in over a year. Rashad Bateman coming off of an injury. A rookie wide receiver in Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews, who's been banged up himself. J.K. Dobbins, who's going to see targets out of the backfield as well. I can see this offense being a straight headache all year long. Now, from an NFL perspective, they're probably going to be putting up some points. From a fantasy football perspective, you're going to be playing weekly whack-a-mole, trying to figure out which wide receiver is going to score the touchdowns that week, and it's going to give you a headache. For me, I'm going to wait and see how this offense plays out and see if any of these guys are going to become fantasy football viable starters week in and week out, which will then take us to Cleveland for the Browns and the Bengals. And I'm glad to have Joe Burrow out there. Just that overall potential that he adds to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, they've already proven that they can coexist together just fine, and both have that proven ability to win your weekly matchup all by themselves. Now, as long as they're both healthy, I really don't see a scenario all season long where Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins just aren't really weekly starters for almost every fantasy football team. In the one game last year that Ja'Marr Chase faced off against the Cleveland Browns, he had 15 targets, 10 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. In the one game that Higgins faced them, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown as well. Both these guys, obvious starts every single week. For Cleveland, I think Amari Cooper kind of fits that same description, right? Sure, they added Elijah Moore, and they drafted Cedric Tillman, and we know they still have David Njoku and Donovan Peoples-Jones. But Amari Cooper is the clear number 1 on this team and should have a very healthy target share each and every week, especially in a game where they may need to throw the ball a little bit more to keep pace with the Bengals if they can continue to score points as well. In the 2 games last year that Cooper faced against the Cincinnati Bengals, he had a total of 173 yards on 7 receptions and 1 touchdown. Now, obviously, his game in Week 8 was way better than the other game, but he's still a wide receiver 2 all day long in the home opener in Cleveland. You're going to start Amari Cooper. But then we go up to Indianapolis for the Colts and the Jags, and we finally get to see what this Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence stack is all about, right? We've been talking about it for months. Can Calvin Ridley really bounce back to that wide receiver 1 level in fantasy football? A lot of people don't think he can do it because of the split in targets with the likes of Christian Kirk, but really, the answer is easy. Both of these guys are going to get enough volume to put up great fantasy numbers. Kirk may not have that weekly high ceiling that we saw him have at times last year due to Calvin Ridley being there, but still more than serviceable as a mid to low end wide receiver 2 each week. Now, it looks right now like the Indianapolis Colts are going to have rookie defensive back Juju Brent starting at corner alongside a special team standout, Dallas Flowers. Honestly, this is an ideal situation for Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and really this entire offense in Jacksonville. I have no issue starting either one of these guys in Week 1. For the Colts, really isn't much to talk about outside of Michael Pittman right now. Now, he suffered through some bad quarterback play now for multiple years. Insert new rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson. Now, you know if you've watched us for a few weeks that we absolutely love Anthony Richardson, but the connection between him and Michael Pittman is something we still need to see on the field. And that connection really needs to result in a lot of volume because this offensive line in Indianapolis is going to have a hard time holding back the pass rush of the Jacksonville Jaguars, really not giving Anthony Richardson a whole lot of time in the pocket, which means Michael Pittman isn't going to have time to allow routes to develop deep down the field. We need volume. We need short to intermediate volume this week for Michael Pittman. If we can get that volume, I kind of see him as a lower end wide receiver 2 as well, maybe a top 25 guy in Week 1 and a risky start. What about Tampa Bay and Minnesota right now? It's really hard to see the names of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and just not have them as no-brainer starts. I feel like we have for so long. But now it's Baker Mayfield playing quarterback, and there's a lot of questions surrounding him and if he can supply these guys to the level that we've been used to in the past. I honestly really believe we need to look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as risky starts until we really see what this new look Bucs offense really looks like. Now, by no means am I saying that I would never start these guys and just put them on your bench and find out. I understand these are high-performing wide receivers, but the risk of them going out there weekly and getting 7 targets, 5 receptions, 43 yards, and no touchdowns is absolutely there. We've seen Baker Mayfield in an offense before with multiple big-time weapons in Cleveland when he had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Their ceilings weren't crazy high each and every week. They do at least get a good matchup, though, here in Week 1. A very young secondary in Minnesota that they can try to take advantage of. Like I said, risky starts for both of these guys. For Minnesota, I just wish I knew what to do with Justin Jefferson. I mean, I'm thinking it's a pretty good idea if we start him this week. What do you guys think? I mean, honestly, I would start Justin Jefferson if you were playing quarterback. I think he'd still put up a solid stat line, but this guy is a weekly must start. But we already know that. But I'm also kind of sipping the Jordan Addison Kool-Aid just a little bit this week as well. I really believe that this kid is going to help take this passing offense to the next level. And this passing offense is already good. Jordan Addison is more of a risky flex play, but honestly, I can see the path to him getting 8+ targets this week, and that is definitely an upside that I'm willing to chase if I have a roster with an opening for him. which will now take us down to New Orleans for the Saints and the Tennessee Titans. And what is the effect on this offense for Tennessee going to be now that they've added DeAndre Hopkins? Because the Titans, they've been one of the worst teams in the NFL from a production standpoint in the passing game for a very long time. Now, Ryan Tannehill is a more than capable quarterback, but I really believe it lies in the hands of Treylon Burks. Now, this dude is a walking injury waiting to happen, but they need him on the field. They need him to stretch the field. Now, while it seems like DeAndre Hopkins is going to command that higher target share and be the safer option, Treylon Burks is still a very big play wide receiver. But one of the main reasons why I see Treylon Burks as a sneaky, risky play here in week 1, I expect the Saints to be able to throw the ball successfully and put up some points against the Titans. No team in the NFL last year gave up more points to opposing wide receivers than the Tennessee Titans. Even with a slight improvement, we're still talking about big-time points. If New Orleans keeps scoring, then Tennessee keeps throwing, and that's only going to give Treylon Burks more chances. Like I said, it is risky, though. But if I'm going to say that the Saints are scoring and they're throwing successfully, I kind of have to be higher on the New Orleans wide receivers then, right? Well, obviously, I'm high on Chris Olave. I have been all offseason, and this is a great matchup for him to start the season. I can definitely see the New Orleans Saints trying to start fast in their home opener. And what a better way to do that than a deep ball from Derek Carr to Chris Olave. But we also have Michael Thomas, who also has some flex appeal. Listen, he may be hurt in the next 2 weeks. He may not even make it through this game, but for right now, he's an option. And he may not get a ton of yards, but he could rack up some receptions underneath to keep the chains moving. Just kind of one of those deeper league plays, a flex play with some upside if you need Michael Thomas. Hopefully you have a better option, a safer option in week 1 though. Now we go down to San Francisco and the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is my Manscaped matchup of the week. Now, if you haven't checked out manscaped.com yet, please do so after this video. You see all the funny ads and it's all about ball hair trimmers, but that's not all they have. There's so much more available on their site, and every one of those products are top notch. I've used them for a very long time. I know that's TMI to some, but just be sure to use promo code HEADLINERS at checkout so you can get 20% off and free shipping. And by looking at the screen, you probably don't see a whole lot of green and you're like, why is this the Manscaped matchup? But look at each one of these wide receivers. Every one of them has the opportunity to go from 0 to holy crap in fantasy points in just one play. The reason that I have them in yellow as more of a risky play though, it has to do with the defense here. And it really makes it impossible from a fantasy football perspective to really try to figure out which one of these guys is going to make that big play and have that good day and make them fantasy football startable. If I had to guess, it's going to take a busted coverage or a defender falling down for one of these guys to see their ceiling in the game this week. However, I will say this for San Francisco. At the time of this recording, George Kittle is questionable to play. If he is out, I drastically like the chances of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk that much more. Don't forget, one of the favorite targets of Brock Purdy last year, end of season, was George Kittle. If he's not on the field, look for those wide receivers to be utilized a little bit more. But we really saw Deebo kind of become an afterthought once they brought Christian McCaffrey into the mix last season. I'm curious to see how they utilize him to start 2023. But this Pittsburgh defense, it is no joke. A lot of risk for these wide receivers. But it's really the tale of two stories for the wide receivers in Pittsburgh, right? We have the volume guy in Deontay Johnson, and we have the big-time catching ability of George Pickens. The one thing that really has me concerned with George Pickens is something I've talked about here for a few weeks. Yes, almost every time he catches a pass, it is something miraculous. But what has me worried is how come he never has any separation between his defender and he's overly reliant on that miraculous catch. What happens if he doesn't get that opportunity? He could really lack some consistency in 2023. Most importantly, though, I'm hoping Pittsburgh really accounts for him in the passing game more. He needs more volume. He needs more consistent weekly targets. He needs to be put in positions where he's not just the big play, miraculous circus catch type of guy. We need him more involved all throughout the game. Because I don't know about you, I love the circus catches too, but I will gladly trade those for more consistent volume here in 2023, so he's a little bit safer and not as risky. How about we go down and talk about the Arizona Cardinals and Washington Commandos now, another team I gotta be honest. With me doing the quarterback video and the wide receiver video this year, I don't know if I'm ever going to start anybody from the Arizona Cardinals. And I get to say that as a disgruntled ex-fan of the Cardinals, but nothing about this situation sounds appealing. The only true positive that I can really find here is that Arizona is going to be losing a lot, which means they're going to have to throw for all 4 quarters. The problem is we don't even really know who the quarterback is going to be just yet. Is it going to be like some revolving door where they're constantly making changes all throughout the year? What is the quality of the targets that are going to be going to these wide receivers? That is a huge question mark. It's just a mess all the way around, and there is zero safety when it comes to the pass catching options in Arizona. Maybe head coach Jonathan Gannon can figure out his joom, joom, joom. Dear Lord, I still can't believe that is a real clip. I'm sorry, Arizona fans, but unless Kyler Murray is on the field and 100%, I'm going to have a hard time trusting any of the wide receivers in Arizona. For Washington, the biggest question here is Terry McLaurin and his turf toe injury. At the time of this recording, we don't know for sure whether or not Terry McLaurin is going to play at all or just be limited. The thing that's really going against McLaurin right now is I don't think the Commanders need him on the field to beat the Cardinals. Even if he does suit up, is he going to be limited to the point where he only runs a few routes, sits the rest of the game out, and you get a big fat 0 in your lineup? Personally, I would much rather start Jahan Dotson. This kid is a great wide receiver, and people are going to see it here this season. He just needs more opportunity. He needs more targets. He's already proven that he can be the reliable receiver and the big play threat down the field that can find the end zone. I would much rather start Jahan Dotson this week than Terry McLaurin due to the injury. Now we head out to Chicago, though, for the Bears and the Packers, and let me say this. The amount of targets that Christian Watson could see in this game if Romeo Doubs does not play is absolutely huge. That alone is enough to make Christian Watson a start for me. In fact, I'm heading back over to Underdog Pick'ems, and I'm going to smash the over on 4 receptions for Christian Watson. I think that's a number he can easily attain in this matchup this week. Now, I have said all along, the only issue I have with Christian Watson is his consistent play from week to week. He's more of a weekly boom or bust type guy. He was with Aaron Rodgers last year. Can he really get past that this season with Jordan Love? Then can he stay healthy, right? We need this kid on the field each and every week. He's healthy now and has the potential for a big target share in week 1, so we're definitely going to fire him up. For Chicago, everyone wants to continue the whole Justin Fields sucks narrative, but you got to remember, we're trying to score fantasy points, not find the next Tom Brady. And with a skill set in a wide receiver like DJ Moore, this is going to play right into his strengths. And because of that, we don't need Justin Fields to be some pocket passer. I don't care if he drops back in the pocket, goes through all of his progressions, and then finds DJ Moore deep down the field. That's not what's going to make us money in fantasy football. We need those short to intermediate routes, get the ball in his hands, and let him make things happen. Now, don't forget, they traded the number 1 overall pick to Carolina. But the stipulation of that trade had to include DJ Moore for a reason. Every other wide receiver on this team, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, they're more of those big play guys, those deep down the field guys that we're probably going to see pretty inconsistent from time to time. The guy who's going to get the steadiest volume with the most catchable passes is going to be DJ Moore, and that's why he's the only guy that I'm considering starting right now for the Chicago Bears. Which will then take us out to Denver for the Raiders and Broncos. And what do we get from Davante Adams now that he may have the worst quarterback he's ever had in his career? Yes, I said that, and I meant it. So many people expect the same old numbers from Adams, but I just don't. Targets? Sure. Receptions? Probably. But yards and touchdowns? Absolutely not. Now, in no way is Davante Adams going to suck, but I don't know if I can expect similar numbers, a similar ceiling from what we've seen here in recent years. It's just going to be a different offense with more pieces. They brought in Jacoby Myers from New England. They brought in a new tight end in Austin Hooper. They also drafted a tight end in Michael Mayer in the 2nd round, and then we already know they brought back Josh Jacobs as well. But this is no easy matchup on the road in Denver. Denver last season allowed the fewest points of all teams in the NFL to opposing wide receivers, and we expect this defense to be strong once again. Now, you have to start Davante Adams. He's an absolute start each and every week, just due to the volume alone and his name value, but he's going to be a little bit more risky this year than maybe he has been in years past. For Denver, the wide receiver room is starting to look like that clip of Will Smith from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when he's in the house all by himself, because Tim Patrick is hurt. KJ Hamler isn't there. Jerry Jeudy is hurt as well. And really the only options left to throw to are Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims. Now, nothing against those guys, but are they really going to have time to let those routes develop down the field when the defensive line of the Las Vegas Raiders are bearing down on Russ? I mean, we got Max Crosby and Chandler Jones who are going to be wreaking havoc in that backfield. Sutton, for me, is going to be a higher risk flex play, but honestly, I don't even like that, and I would prefer to sit him. As for Marvin Mims, let's see how much they involve him week 1 so we can determine moving forward how much target share could he get until Jerry Jeudy returns. I would love to see that before we consider starting him week 1 of fantasy football, which will then take us down to LA for the Chargers and Dolphins. Full disclosure, I wanted this one to be my Manscaped matchup of the week. However, this was the same matchup that I used in the quarterback video, so I didn't want to be cheap. I didn't want to do the same matchup twice. But we're talking about great wide receivers on both sides in this matchup. A couple of no-brainers in Miami, right, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You have to start these guys every single week regardless of the matchup, but this is not going to be an easy game for them. Between the pass rush of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, the secondary of J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, that's going to be tough as well. We got to hope for a lot of offense in this game, but we know we start Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. For LA, it's maybe a little less clear. Keenan Allen still remains the safest option, in my opinion, in this offense. Playing in the slot and not being overly dependent on a deep ball, that's why I love Keenan Allen in this offense. But really after that, we have Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, and the rookie Quentin Johnston, who are all going to see reps on the outside at some point in this game. The issue with that is these guys are a lot more dependent on that deep ball to score big-time fantasy points. They just don't see the consistent volume that a Keenan Allen does. Now, as much as I would like to see it, I don't expect 3 deep ball touchdowns for the Chargers this week, which means a couple of these wide receivers are going to disappoint you. If I had to pencil in the next guy up, somebody has a risky play, it's going to be Mike Williams. We've seen him put up huge numbers in this offense before, and in deeper leagues, he's worth a flex start. And then we go out to New England for the Patriots and the Eagles, and this matchup, it just doesn't have that oomph that it used to, right? New England just isn't as good as they used to be. This is once again going to be a pretty basic offense that just focuses on trying to get first downs, utilizing the run game, relying on their defense late in games to try to get some victories. That's just not going to work out great for their wide receivers in difficult matchups like this one going up against Philadelphia. Philly is one of the best defenses overall in the NFL, and then we add in the fact that this is a lower volume passing offense for New England, and the wide receivers just get lost in the mix here. I do believe that at times this year, Juju Smith-Schuster may be a serviceable fantasy option if he can stay healthy in PPR formats, kind of what we saw from Jacoby Myers just last year. But in difficult matchups like this one, this isn't it for me. I'm sitting all these guys. On the other side of the ball, though, it is the complete opposite. I don't see many weeks where we're not starting both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The biggest concern here for me is if Philadelphia gets a large lead early and then they don't have to throw the ball a lot because they can just run it the entire second half. Now, I don't really see that being the case this week. Like I said, New England's defense is typically pretty solid, but I do expect Philadelphia to try to come out hot and gain momentum. No brainer here. We know we start A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But now we'll travel all the way back across the country to talk about the Seattle Seahawks and Los Angeles Rams, and it totally sucks to see Cooper Kupp's name in red right now, doesn't it? I know, I tried to warn you, don't be mad at me. But LA just isn't the same team anymore. I mean, they bought their Super Bowl, good for them. But then they lost key pieces and didn't have any early round draft picks to develop. Now, I do think that Van Jefferson has an opportunity to get a good target share, but the only issue I have is we've never really seen him produce other than being a complementary wide receiver to Cooper Kupp. What's going to happen when he is the main focal point of the opposing defense when it comes to the passing game? There are a lot of better options out there, many with safer floors than LA this week. I'm not touching any of these guys, especially on the road in Seattle. Now for the Seahawks, I bet Geno is glad to see the Rams kind of slowly fade out as well. He gets to face a lesser defense now and really have the same, if not slightly better weapons. They brought in Jackson Smith-Njigba through the NFL draft. It is still unclear, though, what kind of availability is he going to have in week 1 as he recovers from a wrist injury. With his potential limitations and really no need to rush him back this week, I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both have top 24 potential. Both these guys had great games against the Rams at times last year, and really they're going to be the team's top red zone targets as well. Now, as the season goes on, this group is going to get harder to really nail down each and every week, especially once JSN is 100% healthy. But for now, I'm firing up Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. But now we head out to the Sunday nightcap for the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants, and honestly, this one could turn into a defensive battle. Everyone knows that the Cowboys' defense is pretty good, but I still kind of feel like a lot of people aren't giving the Giants' defense enough respect. Not to mention, each one of these teams has 3, if not 4 or 5 wide receivers that could see decent targets this week. And that is what you call not ideal. From a fantasy football perspective, at least for Dallas, we know that CeeDee Lamb is going to be the top target on that team. It's proven. We've seen it multiple times now. And the reason for that is due to the amount of work that he gets out of the slot. It's one of the reasons they brought in Brandon Cooks this offseason, to try to keep CeeDee Lamb in the slot more often. He's always among the league leader in slot snaps, and that's why he's found so much success here as of late. We already know that he is a weekly must-start, but after him, will Michael Gallup ever return to form? Does Brandon Cooks have anything left in the tank, or is he kind of a one-trick pony, a deep ball threat to spread the field? For right now, only thinking about CeeDee Lamb. And for the Giants, it's a lot of the same thing, a lot of options because they're always getting hurt. Last year, we saw Isaiah Hodgins really do good down the stretch for this offense, but it's really because he was the only healthy option. Plus, I expect them to work in Jalen Hyatt more and more as the season goes on. Personally, I feel way better about Darren Waller and Saquon Barkley in this matchup than I do the wide receivers. Any one of these options could have a decent game, but in week 1 of fantasy football, I'll just let it play out and figure it out going forward instead of playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo to start the season. And then we head out to Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets, and who out there is excited to see what this connection between Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is all about. Now, after watching Hard Knocks, I got to admit my inner fan is definitely excited. We have known for years that if Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust you, he's not going to throw you the ball. However, it's apparent that not only does he trust, but he really likes himself some Garrett Wilson. Now, don't forget, he also has another wide receiver on this team that he has some past connection with. It's Allen Lazard, who also came over from Green Bay. But he's really a complimentary wide receiver to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's going to be the alpha in this offense. Now, normally I would say it's all going to come down to touchdowns here for Garrett Wilson, but honestly, with the amount of sheer volume that he could get, he's going to remain a must-start every single week. And even though this isn't an easy matchup for them going up against Buffalo, they are at home in a home opener in primetime football. And I have a feeling that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to put on a show. But so is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, right? They don't want to start the season 0-1. But for Buffalo, I'm not looking anywhere else other than Stephon Diggs. Now, this defense in New York is legit, and Diggs is going to have to worry about Sauce Gardner probably majority of this game. But this offense is too good to not start one of the wide receivers, and I'll be damned. I will not start Gabe Davis in week 1 banking on that deep touchdown. My heart is not ready for that. This season is too new for me to put that stress on my body. In what could turn out to be a very defensive game, I do think that both these stud quarterbacks are going to take a couple deep shots down the field and try to open up the scoring just a little bit at times. At least we know that Stephon Diggs is going to get enough volume to hopefully keep that floor a little bit safer than maybe what we could see from any other wide receiver in Buffalo, and he'll be the guy that I start there this week. Now, as the season goes on, we're going to get a more clear picture on what these offenses are really going to do week in and week out. But for now, it's week 1. Don't get too cute. Start your studs in week 1. The last thing you want to do is lose a week 1 matchup because you got too cute with your lineup. If you drafted somebody early, these stud wide receivers, don't sit them in week 1 of your fantasy football league. Now, if you enjoyed the show today, do me a favor, please hit the like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing if you're looking for a place that's going to help you absolutely dominate all things fantasy football in 2023. But I'm going to get out of here for the day. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day, and then do your part to make the world a better place.